Hello everyone, I'm Havoc and this is Satisfactory Update 5. We are back over here at the factory. I've made just a few changes since the last video, and that is I updated the copper area. We'll go over that in just a second. I have the make one of each of the entry resources going over there, and then I made the resource sink and resource shop, which is right here. So what I've been doing is just feeding it all of the reinforced iron plate that we're making, except for a small amount that I'm keeping on me and just a few that I am storing in a chest nearby. But this little beauty right here consumes our items and gives you a certain number of points towards coupons, and then each time you get a coupon, the amount of points it takes to get the next coupon gets higher and higher. But I'm going to go ahead and take out the coupons here, 32, that I got while I was doing things, and there are a few items that you can get from the awesome shop here that I'm interested in. Primarily I want to get these stairs, so let's add that to the cart. How do we go back? Here we go. We're going to do the walkways, the industrial walkways, and I would like to get metal pillars. Probably want all the railings and the road barrier, roofs, and then I want to move over into attachments because this is where a lot of fun stuff happens. You got conveyor walls. This right here is amazing. The conveyor lift floor hole, so I can bring conveyor lifts through there. We don't have hyper tubes yet, so I won't bother with getting that. We do have pipes, and then wall attachments for the power. How much is that going to be? It's 26 total of our 32. We're already absolutely destroying it. Destroying the number of things I have. Let's go ahead and get the concrete. And that puts me at 28. That's probably going to be it, unless there's something easy I can do. Double ramp pack is good, but I think maybe the inverted items. Now that leaves me with 31. Let's go ahead and buy all of those things. Now, we're going to stop feeding the resource sink for right now. Let me go over here and show you real fast what I did. This mess of a setup, ignore these goofy conveyors. They were just so I could get the resources closer to where I'm normally at. You've got a 120 node being split into 4 smelters. 2 of them make 40 plates immediately, and those plates go out to storage. The other 60 iron that comes out is turned into rods, and then I take those rods, 10 of them become 40 screws per minute, and the rest of the rods just go down to storage. And what that gives me is just a little place where I can run over here, grab screws when I need it, grab rods when I need it, and grab plates when I need them, and it doesn't interfere with the production of the main factory. For the copper, it's very similar. I'm taking 120 ore up here. This is not some kind of specific ratio for how I did it. I smelt all 4 of them into 120 ingots. Then I take those ingots and I split off. Over here we have 20 being consumed, 2 of them, which means 40, which leaves me with 80 to then become wire. But I don't consume all of it. I have what? That's 30, that's 60. So I'm only using 100 of the 120 copper ingots. And then I take of the, let's see, each of these makes 30, so I'm getting 120 copper wire out. That's a full line. I split, half of it becomes cable, and the other 60 just gets stored over here. So I get copper sheets, cable, and copper wire, and everything is pretty much full over here. And that allows this to give me anything that I might need for building and for turning in to the hub which, speaking of, I'll go ahead and show you. I have rounded out the rest of the tier 1 and tier 2 bits, being like the jump pads. Even though I haven't built any, I did finish it. Obviously I had to do this for the resource sync. It gave me the customizer and color cartridges, which I have not made any yet. And then now, if I'm going to progress, we have to complete the space elevator, which I have everything necessary to build it, but I don't want to build it yet because I don't have the other half of the items that we need. We only have reinforced iron plate. We need rotors. So we need to make rotors that will be at the same rate that we're making reinforced iron plate, which means we need 20 per minute. If one machine can do 4 per minute, it will cost 20, right? So it's 4 times this one cost, which is going to be 20 rods and 100 screws. We have to do that recipe, so the 20 and 100 times 5, because we want 20 per minute. So we're going to need 500 screws and 100 rods. It doesn't work out to be perfect. It won't utilize 100% of these 2 nodes, each producing 120 iron ingots or iron ore, but it will come close. So what we have to start doing is we're going to get smelters out this row here, and then we will move forward. Everything has to be turned into rods, which means we need 8 smelters, we need 16 constructors, and then we move from there and take some of those 13 additional constructors will then be used to make screws. Each of those lines have to go in order to make the machine. So let's get started with the smelters. There are the 8 smelters up and running, 4 each being fed by one belt of 120. It is manifold style, where the ore comes in and overflows. So this one will get all the ore it needs to begin with, and then when it backs up, it will get all the ore it needs, and so on and so forth down until it balances the line properly. After giving some time to run, this will run perfectly, just as a regular balanced line would. It just needs a little time to run, and that's why I have it already powered and being fed, so it can go ahead and start getting the lines primed. Up next, we're going to need to take our 2 sets of 120 iron ingots that are coming out of this, that I'm going to combine into 2 lines and split into 16 constructors that are all making rods. And now we have our 2 sets of 8 constructors, all turning these ingots into rods. The next step is to take a lot of those rods and then turn them into screws. We need 500 screws and 100 rods in order to get the production that we want to see. In order to get to that, you can set up 13 screw producing constructors, and those 13 will make 520 screws, which is just barely over the 500 screw mark, but not to the point where it's excessive. And since our machines won't be able to handle that, it will cause it to back the line up and then not be a problem. So we're going to move a little further out in that direction to set up our 13 lines producing screws. Now we do have to save 100 rods for the actual production, and that's very easily done. We're simply going to set up lines that are evenly producing the 120 screws that you can possibly handle. That's 3 machines, each making 40, so 40, 80, 120. So at 3 machines, what you end up with is 4 lines and then a machine off by itself. And that machine off by itself will not consume all of the rods that it gets, and that will give us some overflow. So let's move forward with the screws. And here's where things get messy. So we left off, we have our rods being made. There's a lot of constructors for screws. Let's hop down there without hurting ourselves. Anymore. Hello? We want to go down? Whoop. Okay. Success. Okay, so it's a little bit messy, but both of these lines combine together. And all of those rods come down here. And part of it goes to that one machine, because if you remember, I said we have to have 13 constructors for screws. Well, this is the 13th. And it just takes the tiniest little bit of rods off of that combined line over there. Now, if you remember, each of these are making 15 rods a piece, right? So at 15, 30, 45, and 60, you combine that with another line, that's 120 rods. And then those 120 rods, we're only scooping off 10, which means you have 110 rods left over to come out of this splitter right here in many different ways. And that's going to be going upstairs to our constructors, to our assemblers that are actually going to need the rods. Now, there's an awful lot going on here. Let me run down here for an up-close explanation of what we're doing. We're taking two constructors per, three. 2 constructors per, right? So that's 30 rods per minute, because 15 to 15 is 30, and running that down a line. Now, 30 rods per minute will do 3 sets of 10. So you have 3 constructors, each taking 30 rods per minute and making 120 screws per minute combined. And I just have a slightly wider belt going to the next set. So you have 3, 6, 9, and 12 constructors making screws from this setup. And I'll get up here and show you a bird's eye view. And then I've already shown you the 13th, which we're scooping off of from that other set of rods. But I just combined each of them, as you see here, with a merger in front, and the machines all combined together. And then due to space issues, I kind of thought I was going to be able to put an elevator coming off of each of these mergers. However, I think that looks a little goofy and kind of clips, and so rather than doing that, I simply did some little loops, alternating angle loops here, and then I will do elevators up, because the next floor up is where our assemblers are going to go that will actually make our rotors from all of these resources. But my goodness, this takes a while to set up. Oh, and you probably noticed there's a few more of these power producing plants over here, and that would be because this is expensive. Each of these machines takes 4 megawatts, and one of these biomass burners will only give you 30. Well, I say only, it gives you 30. That's enough to run quite a few of these constructors, but I had to tack on a few more of these, and they're just burning petals for right now, and that's fine because I'm just getting this fully loaded and everything saturated. That way when I set up the next floor, everything will be backed up. And see, it's still not backed up here. It's still working on backing each of these machines up. They hold so many, 500 to a stack in their inventory. But that's good. That means that I won't have any kind of balance issues or priming time when I get to setting the assemblers upstairs. So next we need to do that. Now, we've got a lot of resources here. You're talking about 520 screws, although I only need the 500, and then 110 rods in order to get my 5 assemblers making rotors. So let's get our second floor built and look at how that's going to work out. Alright, the final piece of the puzzle here are the assemblers up here to actually make the rotors. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I made use of some really interesting things here. So I had unlocked the through the floor what are these things called? Conveyor lift floor holes. Yes, these are awesome. So downstairs, let's run down there real fast. And that floor up there is for something special. We'll get to it in just a second. But down here, you know, we have each of these were ending at the end of their tile there, their foundation edge. And so if you put the floor holes just the other side, you can simply put an elevator up into it and then pop one out on the other side without the need to leave a giant gap. It's amazing. And that allows me to bring each of these up here. Now, if you remember, each of these needs 100 screws, but we have lines of 120 screws coming up, which means only 100 screws will go over there, and I've got 20 extra. So each one comes up through the floor and then hits a splitter and is split, where one side, which has a belt for 120 going out, and then the other side, which also should have a Mark II belt taking 120 per minute, but it will fill up, well, technically it will do 50-50. So it's going to attempt to send 60 screws to the machine, which is less than it needs, and send 60 screws off to this side. But because I have this belt here, which is simply overflow from each of them, we were already getting 40 screws coming up from that one machine going into this line. And it will attempt to take one and one of each of those and pass it on down. Then you have the next one, it will take one and one of these and pass it down, and each one ends up backing up. So this final machine is getting the 20, 20, 20, 20, which is 80, plus the 40 from down below, which is 120, which is more than that machine can handle anyways, which means that it backs up and each machine will run at the full capacity. It will get the 100 that it needs because each line backs up and it prioritizes, or it can't go to the left into the overflow line, so it simply goes to the right to the machine. And we have an extra 20 screws in the entire system because I'm producing 520 per minute of the 500 that I need. And then the rods are really simple. We brought those up from right down here. This is where I split the one set of the rods that goes for that little bit of extra screws we needed, and all the other rods come up, turn, and come to this little system where they run over the screws and then down into the machines. Now, each of these, hello, can I access you here? All right, good. Take 20 rods per minute. We have 5. That's 100 rods per minute. We were getting 120 rods per minute and only taking 10 off to make screws right here, which means we've got 110 rods per minute coming up, and we're only using 100. So again, we have a slight extra amount, but that's the way the math works. If I were to add another assembler up here, then all of them do not have enough resources. I'd rather them all be over resource, have more resources than they need, than have them all undersupplied. There we go. Oversupplied rather than undersupplied. Now, that's that setup, and this gives us a total of 20 per minute rotors. And if you remember, this setup on the other side that we built in episode 1 gives us 20 reinforced iron plate per minute. So we have 20 of each per minute. Now, the reason I don't have a whole lot extra is because I went ahead with the next step in the process and set up a little area to take these plates and the rotors and make smart plating. It takes 2 per minute and makes 2 per minute. So you get 1 reinforced iron plate, 1 rotor, and it makes 1 smart plating. It takes 30 seconds to craft, so you get 2 of those. Now, due to power constraints, I only have 5 of these, and you'll notice everything's out of power right now. It ran out just before I started recording this, and I didn't bother to go get it running again yet. But I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 assemblers, which means I get 10 per minute, and I also consume 10 per minute, or half of what I'm producing, in order to get this smart plating. Now, I did take a few of these smart platings and do a little bit of testing because I could not remember. But when you put something into the resource sink, it won't work right now because I don't have power. But if I put a plate in here, a reinforced iron plate, it gives me 120 points. If I put a rotor in, it gives you about 140 points. So combined, they give you 260. But if I were to put a smart plating, which is simply one of each of those, into there, it gives me 520 points, which is double the cost of the two components. So it is more beneficial to simply put in the smart platings and burn them up in the grinder and get more points. And those points again are what I use to buy fancy things such as this catwalk right here, which is great. Much easier to go between floors, and all of this is going to be rearranged and redone. This is just to get me going and get the cosmetics I need and to progress. And speaking of progression, we are going to drop down the space elevator because we're at the point where we need to in order to progress. And this is a behemoth. Look at all of it go. This is my favorite part. Just slows down at the last minute. Oh, they did so good with that. And we have an established space elevator, so we can send our products in bulk quantity into space. Now, I needed just 50 of these platings to unlock tiers 3 and 4. 3 and 4. Not floor. Seal the crate and send it. Beautiful. I love the animation. Alright, now that has unlocked for us the ability to move to the hub and look at tiers 3 and 4. Something very important to me is this very first one, coal power. I want to get this set up as soon as possible. Coal generators, mining coal, absolutely important. So let's go grab a few more rotors. Do I have any right here? No, I do not. Well, we gotta head back up there because this is something that I want to go and find coal and get coal power going, because running around and using the chainsaw is fun to a point, and then after that it really becomes cumbersome keeping these things powered. That and just the power demands that I have now are extensive compared to before with only a few machines. I need automated renewable power in large quantities. And then we can look at setting up something to get us more of the cosmetics. Go ahead and send the pot off again.
Milestone reached. Coal is an improved alternative power source to biomass and can be fully automated if provided water with the new pipeline buildings and power throughout the initial setup. Coal has been added to the resource scanner. Note: ensure the close proximity of water to the coal production line. Note: pumps will aid in vertical transport of fluids through pipes. Note: Throughput and volume indicators are added to each pipe section automatically.
That is a lot of notes, Ada. But a lot of the things that are coming for us are absolutely great. I mean, all of these are going to be very beneficial, but getting power automated, super important for us. And we're going to have to locate some coal. I'm not sure where the coal is from this point, but we'll figure that out. That's going to be for next episode. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to hit the like button. I really do appreciate it. And if you're not already subscribed, consider subscribing if you enjoy my content. And as always, I will see you all next time.